Hello, my name is Michael Conneely, and this is the third video in the series linking Vedic astrology to psychodynamic Western astrology and healing modalities. And this third part is called Bridging Vedic Astrology and Western Psychodynamic Astrology. There's a blog linking the three videos, and the link to that is in the YouTube description below the video screen you see. And it's part of our wonderful September 2021 Star Wheel Astrology and Healing newsletter. And all the numerous blog and video parts are listed on the September page on my Star Wheel Astrology website. Okay, bridging Vedic astrology and Western psychodynamic astrology. So I want to make the point that in my readings I always include the declarations of Western psychodynamic astrology and also Western evolutionary astrology, as well as the wonders of Vedic astrology and the vastness of Vedic astrology. I do this so that we can see crucial things offered by Western psychodynamic astrology, like what is the effect of our nurture or our nature? What are the sub-personalities in our chart, in our life? What is the unfolding of our individuation, our psychological awareness of our egoic self in this life? Individuation is the process of our getting to know the fullness of our psychological self. It's an imperative. Indeed, the more so that we can bring a more divine perspective on ourself. We have to have a self here in Mahamaya because our self is what gets us to the other side of the river. We need a sense of self to get across to the other bank, which is spiritual realization. We have to have a self, but we also need to understand the way in which it's dysfunctional or unreal. We need to heal it so that we can do the divine work required of us in our fate and destiny and life path in this incarnation, such as the burning of our negative karmas, such as the maximization of our incoming latent talents. And we need to identify what are our missteps that we got wrong, failed with, or got incomplete in our previous lives. If astrology is done in these wider ways and linked to healing methods as well, then it provides such an awesome portal for us to step into our healed self in this life, for us to step more into our fullness, more into our connection to the divine. The combined declarations of Vedic astrology and psychodynamic Western astrology are such wonderful stepping stones in our work of transformation. Such wonderful contributions to our work while we are here, of burning our negative karmas and maximizing our special talents that we came in with this time. This is why we're here. How helpful it is also, of course, to understand deeply our destiny from the position of the outer planets in our chart, in our life. Let me give some examples of how wonderful that can be. For example, if you have Pluto in the first house in your natal chart, then you'll have meltdowns and reinventions of self periodically through the life. We'll behave destructively if we feel threatened or blocked or vulnerable. We could be over-identifying with our bad side, especially if Pluto in the first house is an unaspected subpersonality, in other words, not linked to other planets by aspect lines. We may have been put out of touch with our true and positive power. we may be very unaware of how powerfully or how powerlessly we're coming over to others, because the subpersonality, that Pluto in the first house, doesn't connect to any of the other planets, doesn't connect to the fullness of our psychological self. And the early environment for a Pluto in the first house person is often filled with intense difficulty. Hardship acquaints the individual with the struggle for survival. This leaves them frustrated, restricted and insecure, into control and inscrutability, alone, aloof, full of a sense of fate and destiny, until they find their power. And as an example of healing approaches I use to give astrology its needed additional healing dimensions, in the case of Pluto in the first house, well, just one way, I offer wonderful healing, empowering online journeys to the abyss. You can see that page on my Star Wheel Astrology website. And of course, latent in these people can be psychism or clairvoyance and special understanding of others, and a great ability as they heal to understand the motivations of their shadow side. But let's take another example of linking, yes, Vedic astrology over into Western psychodynamic astrology and healing modalities. Let's look at someone who has Saturn conjunct Venus in their birth chart. Now, Saturn conjunct Venus is one of the classic impediments to happy relationship. So the point is here, the person's upbringing left them with a sense of low value, and this prevents them being able to show their love fully. To take another example, Moon conjunct Saturn in the birth chart is another of the key impediments to happy relationship. A wonderful method of healing that I use here is the shamanic method of soul retrieval. In a drumming online journey, we make contact with the little guy or the little girl who suffered the harm, and it was so painful that the person just split off that being. And we get to lovingly know him or her, often finding that the little guy or girl is raging and hurt, but we work with that. And often finding the hurt little guy or girl was cut off from our conscious awareness, but in fact powerfully directing our emotions and actions. And the whole process of soul retrieval aims to lovingly heal the wounded, split off part of ourself and reintegrate it, healed and happier, into our therefore further empowered self. As a third example of using Vedic astrology with psychodynamic astrology and healing modalities, let's look at the case of Chiron in the 8th house in our birth chart. We often find here difficult themes of partnerships, sexuality, shared money, birth, death and rebirth, loss, abandonment, surfacing of childhood and infantile emotions. With Chiron in the 8th house, our deepest wounds are present. Vast issues of vulnerability and dependency, and how we mask these, are also present. I've done much relationship counselling, and definitely find that a couple can heal their relationship of its astrology wonderfully identified negative scripts and relationship baggage that they came in with in this life, by suggesting to the couple that they embark on a lovingly agreed strategy of identifying the negative scripts at play, and then lovingly agreeing to lovingly point out to each other when the negative scripts are lapsed into, or when the identified unconscious scripts raise their heads. Such progress in relationship healing can be done with this form of relationship counselling, based indeed on wonderful astrological declaration of impediments to relationship and much, much more. A wonderful feature of Western psychodynamic astrology that I always link to Vedic astrology's vastness in any reading is chart aspect shapes. There is a compendious range of interpretation for the chart shapes in your birth chart, made by the aspect lines that run between planets that are indeed linked by aspect lines. And these chart shapes have well worked out manifestations of meanings from psychodynamic Western astrology. These are so necessary to know. They're actually sub-personalities of yourself, and they can actually be split off sub-personalities that you actually don't consciously know are there. So these include such wonderful declarations of, have you got a psychic eye? Have you got a talent triangle? Have you got a yod in your chart, a finger of God? Have you got a grand cross, a T-square? The list is very extensive, and of course Western psychodynamic astrology includes a nature versus nurture dimension. Are you the product of your inherited nature, or are you the product of your earliest nurture environment? And the gift of the nurture can of course be positive or negative. And there are chart aspect shapes to be identified in both the birth chart of your nature and the house chart of your nurture. And I want to say also that of course these wonderful gifts also extend to your predictive astrology. The predictive declarations of psychodynamic Western astrology can of course also be used with such power and such benefit for healing. Let's mention maybe the most prominent psychodynamic Western astrology predictive declaration of when our life unfoldment of our individuation enters the 8th house, when the individuation age point enters the 8th house low point especially. So there's a concept of 2 predictive age points within Western psychodynamic astrology. The first is our individuation age point that progresses round our chart from the moment of our birth. And when it reaches the 8th house especially, well, if we're off course for our sense of self or who we are, then terrible destructive meltdown can occur. Typically this is the midlife crisis. And it's so helpful to have the declaration that this is coming up and the pointers to what its components will be. And then of course there's the key pointers to the healing modalities we can use. Now as to healing modalities, they're absolutely crucial. They can wonderfully augment and heal what is declared by the vastness of Vedic astrology. So for example, there's obviously physical healing modalities which are very valuable, but there's also hypnotherapy, there's QHHT, there's body code, there's emotion code, there's heart wall clearing, there's soul realignment, a wonderful modality, past life, future life work, and many more. And my wife Maggie Pashley does all these worldwide online. So this completes my 3-video presentation of the linking of Vedic astrology to psychodynamic Western astrology and healing modalities. There is a blog which links the 3 videos, and the link to that is down below your screen. And if you go to my September page on my Star Wheel Astrology website, you'll see the links to all the videos and blogs in the wonderful September newsletter offering. Do also contact me for a reading, where of course my readings always include the vastness of Vedic astrology and the fullness of psychodynamic Western astrology, and pointers as to useful healing modalities if such are needed. And so you can get in touch with me for a reading by going to the buy page on my Star Wheel Astrology website. My reports that I can prepare for you, if you pay a small bit extra before the reading, are absolutely wonderful. They're chart compendiums as well. And the reading itself is always so thorough and so deep and so healing. So I look forward if you wish to get in touch. Thank you.